my garden in Selsey, near my observatory. It's a lovely evening and not a cloud on the sky and no sea mist. John Mason's with me, and we're going to talk about variable and eclipsing double stars. Also with us are quite a number of astronomers, mainly with their own telescopes. They're going to carry out various observations. And Crystal and Tots have been talking to them, asking what they're going to do.
Ninian, always good to see you. What are you up to tonight? What have you brought along?
Well, I've got a little Teleview refractor here, which I'm planning to take some pictures through using a digital SLR camera.
So just the sort of normal digital camera you might use for taking holiday photos?
That kind of thing, yes. It's a 35mm type format. And hopefully I'm going to get some pictures of the Pleiades.
Well, you've been imaging for a while now. How's it going?
I've managed 6 nice 10-minute HA exposures of the Pac-Man Nebula.
So it's looking at the hydrogen.
Yes, just looking at the hydrogen alpha channel, which has come out rather well.
You can see why it got its name in the image, can't you?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
What about you, Emily? You've been imaging as well, I think.
Yeah, I've imaged Jupiter and the Seven Sisters.
But you don't need the telescope for that, right? That's the amazing thing. Well, we've provided the nice, clear, crisp winter night. What are you going to use it for?
I'm going to do some imaging tonight, Chris. I thought with it being a little jewel of the winter sky, I'd do the Pleiades.
Excellent.
So that's what I intended to do tonight.
So tell me about the guide camera. How does that work?
What it actually does, it takes a revolving picture every second or so and looks for errors in the tracking of the mount.
So it's doing the hard work for you?
It's doing the hard work for me, yeah.
Well, I can see you've started imaging already. What are we looking at?
M31.
What sort of exposure are we looking at?
10 minutes.
And then you'll take lots of those, presumably?
Yes, I think we're 5 at the moment.
It's looking pretty good already. You've got the new... Oh, look, there's M32.
Yeah.
There's Satellite Galaxy down there. Very good. Well, I know you're getting set up to image for tonight, but these must be from other nights. What are we looking at?
That's right. Well, this is M33 Triangulum Galaxy.
You've really got the fine detail in there, haven't you? It almost doesn't look like it's got spiral arms. It's just got this cloud structure, hasn't it?
It's a very large extended object that's quite faint and requires a lot of exposures to pick out the detail.
Well, it's close, isn't it? So it's spread over quite
That's right, yes, and it's face on, so you're looking through it, which is quite a sort of, it's a thin, tenuous layer which is seen.
Yeah, and you really get that in that image. Well, Nick, if I can interrupt, what are you using Patrick's 15-inch for?
We're actually looking at M45, the Pleiades, at the moment, hoping to see some of the nebulosity using the 15-inch.
Because you don't think of using a big telescope to look at the Pleiades. It's
Not
wide
really.
field, it's
much
bright.
wider.
I mean, you see them with the naked eye, but what do you see?
Well, and you're getting to see some of the subtle colours in the Pleiades itself, some of the kind of blue hues around each of the stars, and some very faint hints of nebulosity. Being more of an imager, it's quite a treat to look through a telescope for a change. And
Proper astronomy.
Yeah, proper astronomy, as you put it.
Yeah, I know the feeling, spending my life looking at a computer screen next to a telescope. I'm hoping to get my eyes to that eyepiece later on tonight, but I'll leave you to the Pleiades in the meantime.
Okay.
Well, John, at this time of the year, obviously, Orion is dominant. There it is, high in the sky now. And 2 brilliant stars, Betelgeuse, the orange-red one, and the bright white Rigel. And they're interesting stars. Betelgeuse particularly because it's variable. And after all, a variable star is exactly what its name implies.
But there are, of course, many different sorts. Some stars vary because you have, say, 2 stars going round each other, and as they do so, one star passes in front of the other as seen from Earth, and that causes the variations. In some cases you have 2 stars where matter is flowing from one to the other, and that causes the variations. And in some cases it's just one star that is pulsating, and that causes the variations in brightness.
Like Betelgeuse.
Indeed. Now, Betelgeuse, of course, is a red supergiant star. It's one of the largest stars known. If we dropped it into the middle of our solar system, it would extend right out almost to the orbit of Jupiter. So Mercury, Venus, Earth and Mars and the asteroids would all be inside it.
Let's have a look now at a pulsating red giant, Mira Cetae in the whale.
Now, Mira, of course, is one of the most famous variable stars of all time. Discovered over 400 years ago by Fabricius, it really is an amazing star. And again, visible with the naked eye at the moment. It was last at maximum at middle of November. It takes about 330 days on average to go through its cycle. And of course, it goes from naked eye visibility right down to magnitude 10. So it's then visible only in large binoculars or a telescope. And during that cycle, the reason the star is varying is because it's pulsating. Now, I have here a model of Mira. So this is our red giant star, and this is what our sun will be like in 5 billion years. Mira was once like our sun. It got into old age, it suffered from middle age spread, it came up to 100 times its original size, and it's now pulsating about 30% in and out. And as that happens, it brightens and it fades in a semi-regular manner. Now, what's interesting about Mira is two things, really. Firstly, it's not a star on its own. There is a small main sequence star that is actually in the system as a binary companion, and to scale it would be about 30 times the diameter of Mira over in that direction, so it's a long way away. As Mira and its companion speed through the interstellar medium at 130 kilometres a second, there's a long comet-like tail streaming out behind, and you can see that in this image taken by the Galaxy Explorer satellite in the ultraviolet. You can see the long tail there streaming out. Now, the small companion, the tail passes over that, and it is actually collecting small amounts of material from that long cometary-like tail. So it's a very interesting system altogether.
And you can see it with a fairly small telescope. You had a look earlier this evening with my 3-inch refractor, and you can see both Mira and the companion star.
Absolutely. And although the two are fairly close with a good quality telescope and good conditions, as we had earlier this evening, you can actually resolve the two.
And there are plenty of Mira-type stars, but not very many are visible with the naked eye, and none get as bright as Mira can ever do. But now let's turn to a different kind of variable, shall we? Almost overhead now is the W of Cassiopeia, and there are two interesting variables there. The middle star of the W, Gamma Cassiopeia, that's a shell star.
That, of course, is an unusual, it's a very luminous star. It's about 70,000 times the luminosity of our sun, and it's spinning very rapidly.
Yes.
And as Gamma Cas spins, it throws off material at the equator, and it has what we call a decretion disk. Yeah. We're used to accretion disks, where material is spiralling round and going in, but this is where matter is being thrown out. And as that decretion disk around the star varies, so that changes the brightness of the star. And when it's its brightest, it can be as bright as alpha or beta, and when it's its faintest, it may decrease down to almost level with epsilon, which is the one at the other end of the W.
Another very interesting star, it looks pretty faint, it's called Rho Cassiopeia, close to the beta, the right-hand star of the W, and that is just about visible with the naked eye. But it's what's called a hypergiant star. Something is going to happen to it one day.
Indeed. Now, this is a very, very remote star. It's about 11,000, 12,000 light years away, and this star is so big that it will eventually, of course, explode as a supernova. Indeed, there are many people who believe it already has exploded, and the light from the explosion is travelling towards us, and it won't be until thousands of years' time that we'll actually see the result of that explosion. It's an enormous star, nearly 500 times the diameter of our sun, and one of the most luminous known. 500,000 times as luminous as the sun. Incredible.
There are plenty of eclipsing binaries, and there are two now on view in the constellation of Auriga. Almost overhead again is the brilliant star Capella, one of the brightest stars in the sky. And close by Capella, there's a triangle of 3 stars known as the Kids. Two of these are eclipsing binaries. The faintest of the 3 is called Zeta Aurigae. That's an interesting star, but to me, the top star of the triangle, Epsilon Aurigae, is even more interesting. It also is an eclipsing binary, but very different in type and very odd.
It certainly is. The main star is a yellow-white supergiant, about 10 times the mass of the sun. But every 27 years, it dips in brightness from about magnitude 3 to magnitude 4. Now, when this happens every 27 years, there's enormous interest, and we're right in the middle of one of the eclipses now. The star began to dim in August of last year. It reached minimum about the end of last year and, perhaps within the last few days even. And it will be at minimum for the next 15 months until the spring of 2011. Now, in the middle of that minimum, there is a brightening, and that will take place between about May and July of this year.
The funny thing is, though, that we've never seen the eclipsing companion, and we don't really know just what it is.
No, we don't. That's the mystery. Now, we think that what's happening here is that the companion to the yellow-white supergiant is an ordinary main sequence star, possibly bluish, enclosed in a sort of donut-like disk of dust. And as the disk of dust with the star in it passes in front of Epsilon, the brightness dims. But of course there's still some light coming from the main star. But this disk of material must have a sort of a gap in it, so that as the gap comes in front of the main star, we get that brightening in the middle. And that's what we expect to observe later this year. It'll be very exciting.
Well, there are other stars of this kind, but none quite like Epsilon or
No, there aren't.
There are, of course, also plenty of double stars that don't eclipse and are not close binaries, and one of these I think is worth looking at. Let's come back to Orion for the moment and look at the three stars of the Hunter's Belt. And they point upwards to the bright orange star Aldebaran in the star cluster of the Hyades. But Aldebaran isn't really in the Hyades at all.
Look closer.
It's a line of sight effect, and I think Pete Lawrence is here to tell us about it.
I've got a fantastic view of Taurus the Bull at the moment, and I can see Aldebaran, the V-shaped Hyades open cluster, and the beautiful Pleiades or Seven Sisters cluster. And to me, it looks like Aldebaran is actually in the V-shaped Hyades cluster, but in reality, that isn't the case. Now, to illustrate what's going on, and in true Sky at Night fashion, we've created a model out of a couple of torches and some leftover Christmas tree lights. I'm standing next to the sun, and behind me, we've got Aldebaran, the Hyades represented by some red Christmas tree lights, and the Pleiades to the right of them represented by some blue Christmas tree lights. Now, from this direction, everything looks more or less as it does in the sky. But if we take a view to the side and move back, we can see their relative distances in space. Now, when we do this, the first thing we can see is that Aldebaran is actually the closest of the objects. It lies about 65 light years from the Sun. But as we pull back so we can look further down the line, so to speak, the next object we come to is the Hyades open cluster. And this is about twice the distance of Aldebaran, about 150 light years distance. But keep pulling back even further still, and eventually we come to the Pleiades open cluster. Now, this is the furthest of the three objects, about 440 light years away. That's about 3 times the distance of the Hyades. So when you see things in the night sky, even though they look close together, they aren't necessarily close together in space. Now, interestingly enough, if you look at Aldebaran in the real sky and look just to the right of it, there is a faint star known as Theta Tauri. Now, look at it carefully. If you've got good eyesight, you can see there are 2 stars there. This is a double star. But these 2 stars are actually the same relative distance away.
The double star Pete was talking about was Theta Tauri. Now, that's in the Hyades cluster, but there are doubles all over the sky. One double star enthusiast is Paul Abel. Welcome back, Paul.
Thanks for having me, Patrick.
Can you remember what double you looked at?
Yeah, the first one actually was Polaris, an obvious one, available all year round. Nice components. I've got a drawing here I made with one of the 3-inch refractors. As you can see here, it's located in the field, and this is easily reproduced. All you do is take a black circle and then paint on the white dots representing the stars. Obviously, you'd use colour paints if you had coloured optical doubles.
There are plenty of others.
Yes, there are. The Theta Tauri star you mentioned earlier, and of course Myra, which John and I were looking at earlier with the 12.5-inch refractors. Quite impressive, wasn't it?
It was, yes. You could see the 2 components. I was amazed.
And it's a strong colour as well. Usually it was quite bright as well, wasn't it? It was quite impressive.
What's your favourite double?
Well, I think, without doubt, it has to be Theta Orionis, because obviously it's a beautiful double star that you've got there, but it's also situated within the Orion Nebula, so you get 2 for free. Wonderful.
Let's find it. Go back to the Orion, the 3 stars of the belt, and down from the belt we come to the Sword. That's where the nebula is, And that's where Theodore Uranus is.
Yes, we were looking at it earlier, weren't we, John, in the top
Yeah, the
half?
trapezium was lovely, and the beauty is that the more dark adapted you are and the better sky you have, the more nebulosity you make out. And it's wonderful when you can see those faint tendrils of the nebula extending out.
They really were beautiful, weren't they? They really did fill the field of view, didn't they? It was quite stunning.
Many are beyond our Milky Way altogether. And that, of course, with respect to you, Paul, is where photography comes in. So let's go now to Chris Lintott.
Stay clear for our other astrophotographers. It's a little damp out here and there's some light cloud around, but the stars are there and let's see what they've made of them. Well, Ninian, you're looking slightly damp over here. It's a bit wet, but how did you get on?
OK, I think I've got some shots of the Pleiades M45, got it right, and the Greater Orion Nebula M42, if you like.
We get these beautiful, crisp images.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Well, here we are. Is this from tonight?
This is from tonight, Chris. I've only taken one image tonight. It's an hour and a half on the Pleiades, Seven Sisters.
You can really see this beautiful background nebulosity, this gas glowing there.
Yes, it comes out a lovely blue, which not too much up there comes out blue in your image, but it's a jewel in the night sky.
This is a fantastic object, isn't it?
It's fantastic, isn't it, M42?
You're right, nebula.
You can see some of the detail.
Yeah, you can see the dark mouth in there.
I think having the big camera on it as well, and having such a wide field of view,
yes,
it has given us an incredible image.
So how are you two doing? This looks fantastic.
This is one of Emily's pictures.
Just some stars that I took.
But I like the telescope down in the bottom right corner. That's quite fun looking up. What about you? What have you been up to?
Oh, I'm afraid I've been doing.
How's our Selsey whale?
Well, there's the Selsey whale.
Excellent. Good.
In narrowband, so that was 14 exposures in the end.
Excellent.
Unfortunately, then the telescope started colliding with the mount, so I moved on to another target. Went for a messier one.
There's the crab. Yep. You can see the structure in that. It's quite impressive.
And then just recently I've been going on the horsehead.
Oh, very nice. You've even got some of the structure in the curtains there behind the head.
Yeah, it's working quite well. It's one of those strange things where, because of the additional moisture in the atmosphere, I don't know quite what causes it, but on a night like this, it's absolutely wonderful.
It sort of steadies it, doesn't it?
It's the perfect night for imaging.
The images that can be produced by small telescopes like these are absolutely stunning and give us a whole new way to see these objects. But there's nothing quite like having the light from a distant galaxy actually hit your eyeball. And I've been waiting all evening to get control of Patrick's scope, and this is my chance. So my favourite objects in the winter sky are two galaxies up near the bowl of the plough, M81 and M82. They're actually quite close to each other in space. They form a little group of galaxies about 12 million light years away, just like us and Andromeda do down here in the local group. And when you look at them through a big telescope like Patrick's 15-inch, you see a stunning contrast. One is a nice face-on spiral, you can just about see that. And M82 is this thin cigar-shaped galaxy, which has all sorts of exciting things going on. It's forming stars, it has winds coming out from it that you see in professional images. But here in the eyepiece, you just get the faint slither of the galaxy.
Well, we've had a great night. Mars is rising now. We'll talk about Mars next month. And still, not a cloud in the sky. We've been lucky, and thank you all very much for joining us. Meanwhile, don't forget, it's newsletter time. If you want your newsletter, send your stamped, addressed envelope to newsletter number 116, The Sky at Night, BBC, Birmingham, B11AY. And I hope, for all of us, I hope it's not too late to wish you all a very happy, if belated, New Year. Good night.
This is